Hi, welcome to Neocolonialism 101. We're Amber and Kirsten, and we'll be your hosts. Neocolonialism is when a more developed country can control the economic policies of less developed countries so that it appears that the less developed country is a colony of the more developed country. Basically, neocolonialism is when a more developed country controls the less developed country's economy and jobs.
Now, you might have heard of the term colonialism, which is on page 274 of the Cultural Landscape, but the concept of neocolonialism is very different from colonialism. Colonialism is defined by Rubinstein as an effort by one country to establish settlements in a territory and to impose its political, economic, and cultural principles on that territory. This definition is similar to neocolonialism, although one key difference is that in neocolonialism, a more developed country controls the economic policies of a less developed country, so that the less developed country looks like a colony of that more developed country. All in all, colonialism would happen before neocolonialism, which you would see in some of our examples.
One example of neocolonialism is the dispute between the Commonwealth of Nations and the United Kingdom. The Commonwealth of Nations is an association of 53 independent states that were former British colonies and are still forced to cooperate with the UK today. There are approximately 2.1 billion people in the Commonwealth of Nations, and it covers 29,958,050 square kilometers, or 11,566,870 square miles, because America. The Commonwealth of Nations was created in the 20th century after each of the states was declared independent countries. Even if they were declared independent, the UK still held on to the economic policies of most of the nations it had previously colonized, thus making it an example of neocolonialism.
Another example of neocolonialism is between the French and the Francophone countries in Africa. During the period of colonization, many African territories were colonized, and France was able to colonize many more territories than other European countries were able to colonize. One of these colonies was the Ivory Coast, which was abundant in many natural resources and cocoa. Did you ever wonder when we got our map quiz why the Ivory Coast was called Côte d'Ivoire? Well, now you know. France helped intervene with domestic situations. More developed countries are gaining access to the Ivory Coast's natural resources, such as oil and cocoa beans. But the main country that is holding power over these resources is France. The Ivory Coast's main export is cocoa beans, although these plants have had a recent decrease of value, which makes it very hard for the Ivory Coast to sell it. Due to the lack of factories to turn these plants into cocoa, the Ivory Coast has to ship most of their cocoa to France so that they are able to do something with it. France and the Ivory Coast at one point had the same type of currency, so France could hold power over the Ivory Coast and many other Francophone countries, which ended up causing many economic issues to the Ivory Coast. France's hold of the Ivory Coast's economic policies show how it is an example of neocolonialism.
Our last example of neocolonialism is between Belgium and the former Belgian Congo, now the Republic of the Congo and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Belgium controlled around 70% of the Congo's economy after the decolonization process. The main part of the conflict took place in the province of Katanga, where Belgium had control over the minerals and resources of Katanga, which shows how it is an example of neocolonialism. In conclusion, neocolonialism is a process that can proceed after colonization, and overall is not a good process for less developed countries. The examples of neocolonialism can be seen through the Commonwealth of Nations in the UK, the Ivory Coast in France, and Belgium and the previous Belgian Congo.